Welcome to another episode of the Simon Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Batisto. My co-host today is the legend, Al Fontes. Been absolutely crushing it on our website with a bunch of different articles. So make sure you guys check them out, SimmonWrestling.com. We also have guest Shawn Charles. Shawn was actually a four-time All-American for ASU. He coached at ASU, but in this episode, we're going to be remembering Bobby Douglas because Bobby Douglas was Shawn Charles' coach when he was at ASU. It's a great episode. We talk about the legacy of Bobby Douglas and how he can be remembered today in collegiate wrestling. So super excited to share this podcast with you guys. I hope you enjoy it. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Spotify and all the major social media platforms. I want to do a quick shout out to the Coyote Club for all their support that they do to local wrestling in Bakersfield. It's pretty simple, right? Coyote Club does a lot to help young wrestlers. It does a lot to help out CCB wrestling and all of the local clubs and high school programs in town. So if you feel like, hey, I like wrestling, I like supporting wrestling, and I like donating, well, consider donating today to the Coyote Wrestling Club. The Coyote Club, you can Venmo Mike Stricka, or you can Zelle him. You can Venmo Mike-Stricka-4. Again, Venmo Mike-Stricka-4. Or you can Zelle the Coyote Club at 661-617-7269. Again, you can Zelle the Coyote Club your donation, 661-617-7269. Enjoy the episode.
Hey, Shawn, I just want to let you know, back at our state tournament when Rich Bailey came up to me and I was working on a few writing projects and he came up to me and mentioned about Bobby Douglas. I know he had just passed away. Um, he was asking if I was interested in possibly doing an article, and he had mentioned your name, and I said, "Well, give me the number now." So thank you for reaching out to me. It was an honor to take on this project. I've always respected Bobby. I had a chance to meet him at the Monterey Clinic back in probably around when he retired, 2013. And I think it was maybe a year or two after he retired, but he was still going to clinics and stuff. The guy is truly, truly a legend. When I wrote the article, I did a deep dive about his past, and what I thought I knew, I didn't know, Shawn.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't know. There was a lot of things I knew at the surface, but there was things I didn't know, and I did a deep dive, and I got a greater appreciation of who he really was as a person, a coach, a mentor, etc. And so when I put together all my data for this article, I'm like, I got to define who this guy really is per our conversation. And that's why I sent it to you today, why I felt he was the architect, the
Right.
pioneer, the builder of champions. And so what I sent you today was my thoughts on
Right.
why I think comparing the architect to what he did. I mean, he's one of the most influential figures in American wrestling history by far. I mean, he was
Yeah.
an elite competitor, pioneer, you name it, championship coach, what he did, no one's achieved on the West Coast. I mean, and on top of that, a technical innovator. I mean, the books he wrote. I mean, he's one of those rare coaches that had 400 wins as a coach. And
Right.
in my opinion, and I'll let you jump in, I mean, he basically, from what I see, he helped shape modern American freestyle and collegiate wrestling as we know it. He is
Right.
the guy. And when you look at Dan Gable, who I respect, and I looked up to Dan Gable, and in all these years, Dan Gable lost to Larry Owens, but unbeknownst to me, he also was a little bit older, and Dan Gable had beaten him in 68. And then he beat him several times in the trial. And Dan Gable talks about it. He calls it the Bobby Douglas, effect, right? And how he influenced him,
Right.
uh, to how to navigate wrestling, how to navigate adversity. So I think Bobby was that catalyst that he shaped Gable, he shaped Lee Kemp and yourself and everything else. But thank you for that opportunity to write that article. It was
No, I really appreciate you doing that for us. That was and it wasn't for me. As I was a wrestler for Bobby and a coach with Bobby.
Mhm.
It was also for a lot of the other alumni, a lot of the other people that, coach Bobby, put his hands on us And he really guided us. And the craziest part about it all is, I don't know any guys that wrestled for Bobby that actually started on the teams that Bobby coached that didn't get their degrees. I mean, we all got our college degrees. We all, we went to school as well as hard as we did when we were, as hard as we did competing on the mat. So we did what we were supposed to do. But he was that guy that put that on you. You weren't going to just do one or the other. If you wanted to be on his team and wrestling for him, you were going to do both. You had to do both. And
Hmm.
so, I look back at some of the experiences I had and things that he explained to me and, showed me. It's like, without him, I probably wouldn't have been able to accomplish most of the things I did as a wrestler for sure.
No, I mean, everyone I talk to about Bobby Douglas, remember those books he put together, Takedown One, Two, etc. I mean, he's well known, but those little details of how he's one of those few coaches that, like an architect, he can come into just bare. He came to Arizona State and he just
Right.
built it, and it's still evolving. He took over Iowa, did the same thing. The Olympic movement. When you look at the Olympic movement when he was coaching, there was a lot of good coaches at that time, but you can see things elevating. Even Lee Kemp, I got to talk to Lee Kemp, and the impact he had on him because he saw him at the world level. And I mean, Lee's the first three-time world champ. I mean,
Right.
he affected a lot of people. And just the way he just loved the sport. I mean, considering the conditions he came from, he just always moved forward. And that one chance I got to talk to him in Monterey, I mean, his words were like a waterfall. It just flowed. It was like, whoa, I never heard it that way. I mean, I
Hmm.
was inspired just by talking. He was just easygoing, laid back, and it was like the wisdom behind his voice was like incredible. And it was an honor to meet him. I mean, in my opinion, that guy. I mean, what you see today, the systems that people are winning on are were probably developed through Bobby or influenced Bobby to other people, and that's who he was.
Right. No, Bobby Douglas, he was a teacher at heart. That's where he
Hmm.
started out as a teacher. And he took what he understood and learned from being a teacher and how to explain things to people. And he was able to utilize that and break it down for wrestlers.
Hmm.
And, I remember, going to practices. And I mean, if he was going to show arm drag, he was going to show you every way you could do the arm drag to
Hmm.
a attacking position. So we'd spend 35, 45 hours on just arm drags. And, being
Hmm.
a kid that wasn't exposed to any wrestling until I got to high school,
Hmm.
it was just amazing that this guy had this much knowledge and technique and positioning and know-how of, the way the body worked and the way
Hmm.
positioning worked. And, all those things. I mean, it's again, like I said, I look back and I just know for a fact that Bobby really did influence me. But I will tell you something that's kind of funny. When I was getting recruited out of high school, Dan Gable was recruiting me a lot harder or heavier than Bobby. And
Hmm.
so Bobby really didn't jump on, or I didn't jump onto his radar until he found out Gable was recruiting my senior year. And that's when he actually, got on started wanting to recruit me to Arizona State. And the one thing for me was I had never wrestled out of the outside the state of Arizona. Never.
Hmm.
I never went to cadets, juniors. I just wrestled high school and won 3 state titles. And for me, it was one of those situations where it didn't make sense to go across country to wrestle when I had a national championship right in my right backyard, and then also had someone that looked like me that was coaching at the level that I wanted to wrestle at. So it didn't make sense for me to go all the way out to Iowa. But again, Dan Gable really did do a fantastic job of trying to recruit me to Iowa. As soon as it was legally possible to do it. So I want
Yeah,
to give him
yeah.
some props for that as well.
No, he did. In fact, I had a kid in high school that was being recruited by him. He ended up going to Bakersfield for a while, then Cal Poly, and it was probably around the time you would have been. There would have been the early '90s and stuff like that. And today's like, ah, man, that would have been cool to be there. But he didn't know, right? We didn't know.
Right.
But no, Bobby, I mean, when he came into Arizona State, I mean, prior to that, he was at UC Santa Barbara. Prior to that, I believe he was an assistant coach. And after he retired, it was the 70 World Trials. I believe he took a bronze at the World. And then Dan Gable had graduated college and went on, but he was coaching Dan Gable. But then he got that opportunity, came to UC Santa Barbara, and then I think it was 74 or something like that, 75 or around that time frame. He came to Arizona. I forget the exact time, but
Yeah.
he basically what I call the blueprint for action. He created a blueprint from the ground up, building that program.
Yeah.
And I've analyzed that 88 team, and I'm telling you, man, you look at the score. I mean, you guys beat Iowa that day by seven and a
Hmm.
half points, and
Right.
Iowa State by nine. I think nine and a quarter points. And you look at every guys you had I think you had seven guys go to that tournament, and you look at a guy like Chip Park. He lost like his second match and won seven
Oh,
in a
first
row.
match. He lost his first match,
Yeah, the
7 in a
first
row.
match. Yeah, lost his first match, won seven in a row. And when
Hmm.
you look at that and you look at the finals, if uh, if Penrith would have beaten Martin, if they would
Right.
have won at Rod Severin had beaten their guy Sinley, there was all these scenarios where Iowa could have won, but every one of your, I think five out of your seven guys wrestled above their seed. They were just
Right.
winning. I think you had like 35 wins, maybe 10 total losses in that whole tournament. That is phenomenal to
Yeah.
consider that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mathematically, it does not seem like it would be possible for a Pac-12 or Pac-10 school at the time to win a national championship. Just the way the tournament was set up. The first round, you could not wrestle anyone from your own conference. So that
Hmm.
means that Pac-10 wrestlers are getting drawn into the Big Ten and Big 12 right away,
Yeah.
right, first round. And then the other thing is if you weren't a ranked wrestler, um, if you weren't a ranked wrestler if you were a ranked, I'm sorry, let me tell you the right way. If you were a ranked wrestler and you were in the Big Ten, you wouldn't wrestle another Big Ten person till the quarters. So you only had to win one match to be an All American. And so
Oh,
a lot
that's
of people don't,
huge.
yeah, a lot of people don't understand how mathematically it defies itself on how Arizona State won a national championship because they're wrestling first round Big Ten or Big 12 most likely.
Hmm.
Second round, they're wrestling Big Ten or Big 12 or another tough conference. And now they're going to be wrestling a ranked wrestler,
Hmm.
right? To be an All American. So, I mean, going through those first two rounds in the NCAA tournament is usually won off of bonus points. Well, the Arizona State wrestlers aren't getting bonus points. They're just winning their matches and winning their matches. But they're not bonusing those first couple of rounds like um, Iowa traditionally does. Penn State now traditionally does those first two, 3 rounds. They're not, they weren't doing that at Arizona State. They were just winning their matches and advancing to the next round.
So
And
they're just getting those advancement points to put themselves in a position where, all right, now this kind of heats on a little bit because now we got a ranked guy.
right, right,
So to put that in perspective, I mean, Zeke Jones was in the quarters. I mean, Chip lost his first match. He was the only one who lost his first match, came all the way back. Ortiz was in the quarters. I think St. John was in the quarters. Gressley, who was
mm,
seeded eighth, ended up taking third. He made it to quarters. Then Mike Davies made the finals, and then Severn made the semis as well. So you guys exceeded all that. I mean, saying what you just said, and you had to come back. All those guys still made at
Dan
least the
St.
quarters.
John's. Yeah, all those guys were there taking care of their business, and I think they had 3 guys: Zeke, Tom, Tommy, and I think St. John's. They were all on the path of being a 3-time All American from that point forward. So, I mean, that was a big deal too, as well. I mean, they have 3 guys in the same recruiting class on a path of being three-time All Americans.
Yeah, see, I think you and I had this conversation at that time. I was over in the Persian Gulf, in the military, dealing with some stuff over there in the military at the time. So I missed the NCAs, but I remember talking to my brother about it. Hey, make sure you record this so when I get home, I can watch it. And I remember I got home and I see this T-shirt. My friend throws it to me. It was like a tank top. Said Arizona State NCAA champions. I go, dude, is this real? I mean, where'd you get this? He goes, yeah, it really happened. I look at my brother. He goes, yeah, bro, it happened. We watched it. I didn't believe him. I thought it was a made up. I mean, who would have thought, right? I
Right.
was like ranked number one all year. And, you guys were doing good. I mean, they were right there. But to sit there and think that that's just phenomenal. And that's just a testament of Bobby and his ability at all levels, mental, physical preparation, and helping you guys navigate through all those difficult situations. And, I got to talk to Mike Davies, and what he said is like, we went in believing we were going to win it. We are believing it. I mean, the mindset. And that not too many coaches can do that.
No, Bobby
Talk.
Bobby was those type of coach, whereas he would find a way to pull whatever you had in you out of you. He was
Hmm.
that guy, and so I'll give you an example. My junior year, I'm ranked probably second in the country, getting ready for some tournament, and we're all in practice, and there's everybody's there. I mean, I have Ray Miller, was a teammate of mine, Marco Sanchez. These guys were all in the same recruiting class. We're
Hmm.
all working our butts off, and he's like, Ray Miller, you're out of here. He's like, Marco Sanchez, you're out of here. Like 30 minutes into practice, and I'm like, okay, well, eventually he's gonna call my name. I'm there for about an hour still drilling and working hard. And
Yeah.
he's like, Charles, before you leave, you got 3 matches. I'm pissed. I'm like, everyone else bolted out here an hour ago, and this guy is going to tell me I still have 3 matches. I was like, man, I'm out here. I walked out. I'm ready. I'm thinking I'm gonna, I'm so pissed off. I want to quit the program. But then I started thinking I'm not gonna let this dude make me quit. Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
so I come back to the wrestling room, and all right, let's line up the matches. And he puts these guys in front of me, and man, I was so mad. I just tore through them all. Right? And I look back on that experience, and one of the things, because I got to coach with them, so we got to talk about my experiences
Hmm.
as an athlete or anything. And he told me he knew that I was behind. I didn't have as many matches as those guys did. He knew that
Hmm.
I had to do more to try to catch up to all these other guys because they had a lot more mat time than I did because they started wrestling before I did. But as a person at that time, being young, I was like, I thought he was picking on me or picking me out and
Hmm.
not being just or fair. In the hindsight, he was really just trying to get me up to speed to be able to take care of the business that I needed to take care of going into these events. So that's the kind of guy he was. He would push buttons for sure.
When
Yeah.
I hear that story, is that something that when you now step into a coaching role, are you thinking about all these things that you've interacted with Bobby with, and like what translates or what things are like? There's no way I'm putting through a young kid something like that.
Well, when I was at Arizona State, I coached Anthony Robles, and there's some that people they think that because Anthony walked around on crutches, that's what made him strong. And it's so funny to me that when people say that, it's like he gets strong walking on his crutches. Like, no, he got strong from working out, working hard, training hard. And so, when I got there at Arizona State, one of my things about Anthony that was really hard to wrap my head around was how do you get him in shape? You can't run him, right? I mean, you can only get his heart rate up so much running on one leg. You can't. There's a lot of things you can't do. Aerodyne is really not going to benefit him, right? Because he can only use certain 3 points out of the 4 points that you can put on Aerodyne. So I went and we commandeered a arm bike. When I was at Central Michigan University, we commandeered an arm bike from the baseball team the same way we commandeered Arizona State, and when
You just
I,
went and grabbed it or what?
yeah, we just
Yeah, let's go.
and we put it right in the wrestling room, and we would I would put him through these specific workouts specifically so I could get his heart rate up because I started really thinking about how does Anthony Rose lose matches? He loses matches when he physically can't use his arms anymore. That's how he loses. And then if he had to go into a wrestle back, it would even get worse for him because he gets no recovery time. So I'm thinking about, I think a lot about my past and how I got better. So I had to be tough on Anthony to a certain extent, like, hey, we have to do this. This is something that if you want to accomplish what you told me you want to accomplish, we have to get through these bikes on a weekly basis. And Anthony never balked, never pushed back. And you guys definitely could see if you watched from his junior year to his senior year, there was a development, there was a change.
It seemed like every year there was growth. Like, and I got into this pretty heated argument with one of my buddies, and he was saying like, "Man, that was unfair. He's only got one leg." And I'm like, "Dude, listen to yourself talk. Like, if it was unfair, he would have won 4 national titles. Like,
Right.
there was a progression to his style, and you can see it from year after year."
Yeah, no one ever thought it was unfair until he started winning on a consistent basis. And then it became unfair. But when he was losing, it was not unfair. And so going back to Bobby, so I take some of my experiences that I went through and training that we went through and how he got us mentally and physically ready to go to the tournaments and to go to the events and give it our all. I tried to apply that to the programs that I coached at.
When he's like the leader of the program, I listened to one of this old podcasts that you did. It was Wrestling Changed My Life, and like you were on, I think one of the first few podcasts that they did. But you told this story how Bobby wasn't in your corner for a match,
Oh yeah,
and the tournament's getting kind of close, and then Bobby runs in and he's like, do it for your team, do it for yourself, and then he's like, do it for your mom, and it was like
true
when you
story.
that story is pretty epic. But when you think about like normally as a head coach, it's like a lot of times, especially a guy, I don't know how much he was wrestling with you guys back then, but normally those guys are in the corner for big matches. Like what was that thing maybe from a coaching element that you've known or maybe learned from that experience where it's like you kind of have to just delegate a little bit sometimes to your assistants instead of being the head coach always in the corner?
Yeah, you definitely do. Like Bobby Douglas, we also had Melvin Douglas, and so Bobby is very, very intense. So you have to, some kids like intense. Some people want that energy with them, and some kids don't. I didn't like the energy. I didn't like that energy. Bobby was too much for me. He was like, I'd rather have Melvin because Melvin was very laid back, and very positive the whole time. Where Bobby, he's just yelling the whole match. I mean, like, so I'm like, man, he could be over here. I'd rather be with Melvin. I'd rather have Melvin in my corner because he was just more just laid back, and the match was going to be the match, and you just go do your thing, and everything is okay. But when I wrestled in that match, it was one of those matches, and it was a time in wrestling where if you tied in the first match, you did a 1-1-1 full another match. So you got a minute break in between, and then you did another, but they were 1 minute periods, but you did three periods in overtime. And the guy that I wrestled, he wasn't a kid, he was a man. The guy that I wrestled with was a two-time Division II national champ. This is the year before they stopped Division II being able to wrestle into Division Is. And he was tough. He was a lot tougher than I thought. And Melvin had told me before I walked out there, just go hard. He's gonna get tired. He's not ready for this level. Da, da, da. He never got tired. This dude was all world. He was tough. And so I'm
Was it a
sitting on
Portland
that.
State kid?
No, no, it wasn't Portland State. It was actually Springdale, Missouri. The kid was from
Oh,
a Division II
okay.
school out of Missouri.
Okay.
And
Okay. Okay.
and so when we started scrapping, in that overtime, I'm sitting down, and the thing that almost got me was he was standing up in his corner, and the coach is fanning him with his towel or shirt, whatever. And I'm sitting down, and I'm thinking to myself, came across my mind that, man, I'm only a freshman.
Oh
If I lose this
gosh.
match, And Bobby came out of nowhere, and he's like, hey, you ready for this? And I didn't say one word to him. So obviously he's gonna keep going at it. And he's like, you got to do it for your team. You got to do it for yourself. And then he pulled out the one thing that he knew was gonna snap me back into what he was like, you got to do it for your mom. I'm like, man, why you gotta bring my mom into this? Of all, like I was really hot about that. I was like, of all the things he's gonna say, he's got to bring my mom into this situation. But it got me jump started. I was thinking, man, I just got to go out here and fight hard and do what I normally do. Just never give up. And it worked out for me. So I look back on that experience, though, and I've talked to my kids about this because that was one of the rare times in my life where I'm sitting there because I had the time to contemplate, am I gonna go hard enough to try to win, or am I not going to? And Bobby put me in a position, mind wise, to go out there and try to win hard. And yeah, yeah. So
It
that
was
was
almost like adversarial, like I'm gonna say something just to get you fired up.
yeah.
Like it wasn't like he was trying to target you or pick on you. It's just like I need to wake you up, and now you're in combat mode. Now you're
Right.
ready to go.
Right. And I think when you ask me about that, when it comes to coaching your kids, I would tell any coach out there the best way you can coach your kids is try to get to know your kids. The better you know them, the better you're going to be able to help them. And, we don't go home with our athletes, but, when you have those road trips and things like that, really try to pull kids off to the side and try to get to know them as a person. Because if you know them as a person, you are going to find out what motivates them and why they really want to wrestle.
Yeah, exactly. That was something I learned too, like building relationships with the parents,
Hmm.
especially like that line of communication. That way, if a kid's like, oh, I'm going to be late to practice, I have school stuff, and I call the mom or something, and it's like, no, he's hanging out with his girlfriend, and
Right.
then it's like, then we have that communication, we're able to deal with those problems.
Right. That's right. You're right. Exactly right. But that's so again, if I could tell any coaches out there that's going to listen to this, the better you know your kids, the better coach you're going to be for your kids.
Is that kind of getting to know, like when Bobby's getting to know you, was that something that, obviously it started during the recruiting process, but would you guys go on like trips? Like what was he like, I guess, out of the wrestling room where you can kind of build that relationship?
Well, when we would leave Arizona because of the traveling, we would be gone for 14 to 18 days.
That's
So
a long time.
yeah, when we would go out to Midlands over Christmas break, we would be out there and we'd wrestle every school out there we could before we came back. So we would be gone for quite a bit. And so, you learn a lot about yourself. I mean, cutting weight all day, all the time, every day, all day. You learn a lot about, getting your mind and body prepared for competitions because you're wrestling every other day. Um, and you get those opportunities, a lot of opportunities where because you're around your teammates and your coaches pretty much the whole time, and so you get those times where you get to sit down and really talk. So I'm going to tell you guys another really good Douglas story. My freshman year, so we're headed to the Midlands tournament. Never forget it. And we have all these seniors: Zeke Jones, St. John's, Tommy Ortiz. All these guys are ranked number one in the country. Townsend Saunders. All of them are ranked number one in the country. We're heading to this big event, and there was this discussion at one of the tables. We were at dinner on who was going to get OW, and it got to the point where it got physical because they were arguing over who was going to get OW. And now you have a table with me, Ray Miller, Wayne McMahon. We're true freshmen, and we're just like shit. I've never even been to the tournament before. I'm just hoping I win a match, right? I'm just hoping I win, right? Like these guys literally are at another table at a fisticuffs because they're fighting over who's going to get OW. Now, the funny part about that is an Arizona State wrestler did get OW. It was Andy McNaught. He did get he did get OW. But what Bobby did is he came up to us and he could see that we were all were like shocked. Like these guys are really fighting over who's going to get OW at a tournament that's this big of a tournament. He's like, it doesn't take a lot of energy. Because it doesn't take a lot of courage to walk out there and wrestle knowing you're going to win. It takes a lot of courage to go out there and give everything you got, knowing that you probably won't. And I've never forgot that. And I've used that statement so many times in so many different opportunities and matches in different parts of the world where no one knows that I don't know what the outcome's going to be. This kid's tough. I don't know what it's going to be. But I'd be damned if I'm not going to give everything I got to see who's going to be the best guy out here. And I never forgot that statement because it's so true. Because if you've coached, you've come across kids. It's like, oh, when they know that they're going to be the dominant guy out there, they're all ready to go, happy, go lucky. Everything's nothing can bother you. But then when they have someone that's very comparable to them, oh, coach, my shoulders kind of bother me, or my knees kind of bother me, or I'm not feeling so good. And I've never forgot that, and I've used that so many times on other athletes that needed that little boost to understand that what no one really cares how you feel in this whole arena. Like you tell me, you're not feeling good. No one cares. I mean, you still have something that you needs to accomplish, needs to be done today, and that's you going out there and getting everything you got. Bottom line, that's it.
That's an absolute like golden nugget of wisdom. And I think I like it because it's almost like it's a challenge to somebody on a level where it's almost like if you don't do this, you're kind of a coward almost. And but it doesn't come out, it's not as pointed as that. It's like almost uplifting, like, hey, you can do this. And if you
Right.
do this, you're gonna be courageous. You're gonna be somebody that's brave.
Right. And more importantly, you don't know what the outcome is going to be unless you go out there and give it your all. That's the ultimate thing I took from it. It's like, yeah, if I know that I'm better than the guy ranking or because I wrestled before, that's one thing. But shit, I'm a freshman. I'm going into tournaments where you have Kendall Prost, and returning national champion, Terry Brands. You got all these guys that are studs, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what the outcome is going to be in some of these matches. I mean, but I do know one thing. if I don't go out there and give everything I got, I probably won't win. And that's what I took from that when he was talking to us about, don't take very much courage to go out there and wrestle someone you can beat. It takes a lot of courage to go out there and give everything you got, not knowing what that outcome is going to be. And I've always wrestled ever since that day. I've heard that. I've always wrestled that way.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna steal that one and say it to my athletes now. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's what I mean. When I
that's
look back on
huge.
my career,
Wow.
I see these little nuggets that he left me from his coaching and getting you to think about yourself as an athlete, what you're capable of doing, and then what you might not know what you're capable of doing, and your coach has to help pull out of you.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Al.
Shawn. Oh, I was just sitting there thinking, when we both first spoke about, doing an article on Bobby, it reminded me after I was done I read a book called The Brave New World. Aldous Huxley, he had a quote: "There's the known, and then there's the unknown. Everything in between opens the doors of perception." So this conversation we're having right now is breaking those barriers of perception. A lot of people don't know this about Bobby. So when I think about that in the end, I'm like, how would I want to how would I want to remember Bobby Douglas? How should people remember him? I think he's that builder of champions. He's that guy that just didn't win and make champions. He elevated the sport per se. He taught you fundamentals. I mean, how 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 do we want to remember Bobby? What is the best way to remember Bobby? In your opinion?
I think that I want people to remember Bobby as a guy that very intelligent, very intense when it comes to preparing you for competition and competition. Um, 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 and a motivator, like in his own way. I mean, the one thing I will tell you, okay, so I'm gonna answer this question, but I'm gonna give you an example. I had to recruit against Bobby, and we're recruiting the Paulsons. And
Okay.
Hmm.
Nice.
yeah, I was in Nebraska at the time, and we thought the Paulsons were coming. They were coming, and they wanted to have one more final conversation with us before they made the commitment. And one of the Paulson brothers, I can't remember which one it was, but he asked me a very, very interesting question at a critical time. And he asked me, he goes, you know what, Coach Charles, you wrestled for Coach Douglas. So why should we wrestle for you instead of for the guy that helped you become a four-time All-American? Ooh,
Oh my
boom.
gosh.
That is, and we're on the phone, like it's parents on the phone. Me and Mark Mannion are on the phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And I'm like, you know what? I said that's a great question. I go, you know what? And I truly believe this. If you are willing to do it the way Bobby wants it done, he's going to help you get on the podium. But if you can't do it the way you want it done, you won't make it there. That's how I left it because that's the honest to God truth. And you can ask anybody that was coached by Bobby Douglas. That's how it was. If you were willing to come in there and do it the way he wanted it to get done, if you're putting in the work, hitting the weights, getting on the track, wrestling hard in the room, he'd put you on the podium. But if you weren't willing to do those things, you wouldn't make it. You'd quit. So,
How did that relation? Because you coached with him at Iowa State for a little bit too, right? How
yeah.
is that relationship like going from all right, like coach wrestler to now like all right, now we're coaching with each other?
Oh, that was another treat for me because I got to learn a lot more from coaching with Bobby and how to prepare the athletes for competition. And remember, I was still competing myself, but it was from a different angle that I was, with the athletes and with the coaching staff. And so just being around him and understanding how he organized a practice, how he, you know, got, how he planned out the season on how we were going to get in a certain amount of miles in on the track, or how we're going to hit the weight room a certain amount of times before a certain tournament. He would plan all these things out so that making sure that he put everything he could put into you before these bigger events that he thought you needed to have so that you go out there and compete the way you needed to compete for yourself and for the program that he was coaching at. And so I got to learn a lot As an athlete, I learned a whole bunch, but then I got to learn a whole nother level of being with him, coaching other kids, other people. And yeah, it was a great experience. I learned a lot from it. And again, I got to see him firsthand take kids that I don't know if that kid could ever be an All-American, but he did what he was supposed to do when he was supposed to do it, and the way Bobby wanted it done. And that kid was, an All-American.
It seemed like too, like, and we've kind of talked about with Bobby already, is like he would be somebody that he could see the potential in somebody no matter what, and he just would try to figure out ways to bring it out of you. Like,
Right.
are there other things that like when you're now that you're kind of coaching with him, like kind of knowing that, did you maybe know that at the time when you were an athlete, and then like when you're now coaching with him, when he's interacting with a kid like that, it's like, all right, I kind of see some of the little things that he's saying, like the little jabs, or maybe he's pumping somebody up, or maybe he's keeping somebody longer at practice. Like, how do you get, I guess, kind of pick up on some of that stuff?
It was definitely harder to see as an athlete, because I gave you guys an example. I thought he was actually kind of picking on me at one point. But when I got to coaching with them and talking with them more about, my experience and then watching him coach other guys, it was exactly like you're saying. You start picking up on all these little things that he says and does to make sure that the athletes understand that this is the way we need to do it if we want to have success at the end of the day. you know. And so, and Bobby was an easy guy to follow as far as an aspect. Obviously, he got a college degree. He was a great wrestler. So we all looked up to Bobby. That's another thing I will tell you that I think is Bobby Douglas' secret sauce is you want to wrestle for Bobby. That's the bottom line. Like kids that came to Arizona State, Iowa State, they came there for Bobby. And so when I was at Arizona State, our wrestling room was very small. We couldn't even have two full mats in our wrestling room. Smallest wrestling room there probably was in the country for a D1 program. And so you had to learn how to wrestle where you stood, basically. And um, oh man, for a second, I'm losing a train of thought. So,
You were talking about Bobby and just being in that environment and like learning how to wrestle like the way that he wants you to in that kind of like small room.
right. So we were training in this room that happens to be less than two mats, and you literally have to learn to wrestle within your circle. Because if you go out of your circle, you're going to fall into another group. So I'm on a scholarship. My first 2 weeks at school, my job was to make sure that the guys that were starters did not fall into another group. Now, I want you to think about this, okay? My first 2 weeks, I did that because if you didn't come in the room ready to wrestle, picking out good guys to wrestle with, then that's what you would do. And then, but this is what would happen after the practices were over. Bobby and all the really good guys would leave, and there would just be us other guys left back to work out in the room, but there would be no Bobby in the room. So I learned quick, fast, in a hurry that if I want Bobby to help coach me and get me better, I need to come in here and I have to pick someone that's possibly a starter or potential point scorer for the school, right? And this is my retro freshman year. And so I remember going in there and I'm asking, Tommy Ortiz, he wrestled 150. Hey, you want to practice today? I'm running around trying to get a partner just because I want him to watch me wrestle so I can get better, so he can tell me how to get better versus me breaking up groups the whole time for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then he just leaves with the other guys. And I'm going to tell you right now, that was such a great motivator right there. That right there, I could have been a completely different wrestler. What if I'd have been like, okay, we're breaking people up the whole day in practice? What if I'd have been like, and guys, we know athletes that would have been okay with that. And I was like, you know what, man, I'd rather get my ass kicked every day in the practice room, and at least he can help me and tell me how I got my ass kicked, than not, you know, than than um than not come into the room and pick a good partner. I'd rather pick a good partner, get my ass kicked, than him not be able to help me get better as a wrestler. And I'm telling you, that was his secret sauce. Every kid that wrestled for Bobby Douglas, Kel Sanderson included, all the way down to, Zeke Jones or up to Zeke Jones, we all wanted his attention. We wanted him to coach us. You wanted him to be there and give you his advice on what was right and what was wrong, what you did right and what you did wrong.
Environment sounds like so intense, but I think what a lot of people don't understand when you go into a Division One room, and I don't know if it's necessarily changed now, but I mean, I remember hearing rumors before I went to CSUB. It was like guys were getting choked out, and it was like it was a physical environment, and not saying that it was necessarily like that at Arizona State, but it sounds like it was. Hey, if you're coming in here, like you're coming in here to scrap. Like if you're not like showing right away that you belong, like you're gonna kind of get kicked to the side and not really get the attention that you want.
100%. And so again, this is my redshirt freshman year. We had some kids. Obviously, you have your walk-ons coming into the room, and this one guy he picked out. He had Tom Ortiz and Townsend Saunders because this was the first 2 weeks. So I'm sitting there breaking people up still. But I saw this kid pick these two guys, right, and I knew they were returning All-Americans, and he got the hell beat out of him. I mean, literally got the hell beat out of him. The next day, he comes in the room, and Bobby's like, "Hey, you can't be in here anymore." He told him, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt in this room. You're not ready for this level." He had to tell that kid that. And, yeah, so I'll never forget that too. So yeah, Bobby was like I said, he was a very intense guy, but very smart, very intelligent, very organized as far as its practices went, as far as our training went, as far as our travel went. And the one thing I would say too, he was really smart because although we were in the Pac-10 at the time, we had good wrestling in California. I mean, we had good wrestling around us. California was tough. Oregon State was tough at the time. So we had good wrestling around us. But he also understood because we weren't in the Big Ten or Big 12, he could help pick and choose our battles. So meaning like, we set up the duels and so he would prepare us for those bigger matches. You know what I mean? Because we didn't have the Big Ten schedule. So he could work us around and train us in a way where we got ready for the Midlands tournament instead of just showing up, beat up or beat down. We're ready. We're peaking at the Midlands tournament. We're peaking for our conference championship. We're peaking. He was that kind of guy. He had the smarts to understand that putting together the duels because we're not in a conference that's a dogfight duel every single week like the Big Ten. He could pick and choose our battles, and he did a very good job of that for us to build up our confidence and put us in positions where we can actually beat guys.
It seems like some of the teams right now that maybe aren't in the Big Ten or like Oklahoma State, like teams like in the ACC, like NC State or Virginia Tech, normally have really great seeds. Sometimes coming into the national tournament, and part of it you can make an argument. It's just like the whole seeding situation is maybe a little bit broken, needs to be adjusted. But
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, it's like they don't have that Big Ten schedule where these guys are constantly beating each other every other week, and it's just this dogfight. It's like they can be a little bit more fresh and like actually build this training cycle leading up to a big event that's going to put them in a really good spot for the national tournament.
I would say that's true, but it's probably changed over the years. But it's probably a little bit more true because the Big Ten is no joke. I mean, going through that conference and having to duel, I think it's 7 or 8 schools, every single year. I mean, you're going through the gauntlet, right? The problem with it is, though, when it comes to the seeding, is once you start out ranked in the top 20 in that conference, you never drop out. That's the problem, and that's why coaches get upset about it. It's like something really has happened. As long as you get beat only within the Big Ten, then you never drop out of the top 20. Well, that's an automatic qualifier for the NCAA tournament. That's not fair to the rest of the wrestlers out there that are competing for those spots.
Yeah, same thing. Like if you come in ranked in the top 15 or whatever, and you're only having top 15, top 20 matches, you're probably, if as long as you don't have a crazy loss, like you're probably going to qualify automatically. I'm trying to think one of the heavyweights this year, he's still All American. He's still pretty good, but he got he had a losing record, I think, going into Big Tens, but he only lost to guys that are ranked in the top 15.
Right, right. So there is that, right? Because you got to remember, there's kids that probably had a better winning record than that individual did. Because I don't know what heavyweight you're talking about, and they didn't even their weight classes weren't qualifying that many kids to get to nationals. So that's where coaches get a little upset about the rankings and how it works.
One of the things that Al and I were talking about a little bit, and I think it was a lot of the alumni or guys that had coached with or had wrestled for Bobby is setting up some kind of like perennial coaching award or something that kind of acknowledge him a little bit more. I'm trying to think like what would be something that from a somebody that knew Bobby and had that relationship with him, like what would be something that would be fitting?
In a word where, um, you know, that Bobby gets recognized for helping people in wrestling. I mean, the reality is for me is this. Bobby gave me an opportunity to wrestle. I never wrestled outside of the state of Arizona, like I said earlier. I won 3 state championships here. Never wrestled before my freshman year, but he at least gave me the chance. But he did that for a lot of people that look like me. He gave us the chance to go one, get to college and get a college degree. Two, to be able to compete at the D1 level. And then he also packed on the tools and the resources for us to also become successful and be All Americans and challenge for national championships. And he did that for.
Oh, cut out. Pause it just. Yeah, sorry, your phone died, I guess. That's okay. You're still on mute.
I'm sorry about that. My phone died on me. I apologize. Long day
No,
today.
you're good.
So I want to finish telling you this thing about Bobby. So so you want me to just start over? Or you want to ask the question over again?
No,
Or
we got all that. So we were
okay.
talking about what would that award look like. You were talking about how it gave people opportunity and kind of help elevate the sport in a lot of ways.
Right, and when I say he gave a lot of people opportunities, and also it goes for women as well. I mean, Trisha Saunders was out here in Arizona training with Arizona State, um, uh, and Arizona State hosted the first women's training camp for the first women's pro team to go out and wrestle in the World Championships. So he was a big component of women's wrestling, even when women's wrestling was even been thought of, and so just knowing that all the things that he's done for so many different people of so many different um, backgrounds um, really has me and a lot of the alumni. We understand that he deserves some type of recognition and some type of award for those kids that are out there that um, might not win a national championship, might not, reach some of the goals that they express for themselves, but they overcome obstacles to be able to be in the sport of wrestling to contribute to the sport of wrestling.
I like that. So kind of almost like this underdog approach, maybe.
Kind of, Bobby Douglas. If you know anything about his background, I mean, his background was tough. I mean,
Hmm.
he was brought up in Ohio and not a very friendly environment, a lot of racism around him. And then he gets into coaching and he gets into wrestling and he has to deal with more adversity and things that most people don't have to deal with or don't even know what he went through. And it still didn't push him out of the sport. Then he gets into coaching and he does all these things that aren't expected of him to be able to accomplish, winning conference championships, winning national championships,
Coach
coaching
of the Olympic team.
coaching Olympic team, world championship teams. And so just on his face alone of the things that he overcome came to be the person that he was, I think deserves something. But then to be able to pass those tools on to others and so many others. I mean, a lot of us Division 1 coaches, All Americans, national champions, world team members, Olympians, even high school coaches. I mean, he has a pedigree out there that is second to none, and I he should be recognized for that.
It
See,
would
I
be
when
interesting,
oh,
maybe Al, maybe we can look at like what is like Bobby Douglas's coaching tree look like
oh,
and try to
it's it's
tackle.
it's it's off the charts. I mean, I think when I think of Bobby, he's a builder of champions. It doesn't mean you take first place. He elevated the sport. You have to look at everything he had done. Um, he's probably one of the most underrated figures in wrestling history. I mean, as far as he's got the accolades, he's got the coaching tenure, what he's done, but the impact. I mean, he broke barriers. He developed and recruiting dominance. I mean, he's the only coach that ever had a team in the West Coast win a national championship, and just his influence on modern technique and freestyle integration is second to none. He was doing books well before people were doing that. I mean, he built systems, people, and progress. So he's like a builder of champions. He elevated his sports. He's like a nuclear reactor that creates a nuclear criticality that generates the energy for a whole city, right? You don't see the nuclear reaction. He's the nuclear reaction. You just see the result of it. And he's one of those guys that I think really impacted from the grassroots up. I mean, he impacted Gable. Gable probably became a better coach because of his experience. We always hear about Larry Owens, but I really, Gable called it the Bobby Douglas effect, how he impacted him. And I think, you know, um, you have Lee Kemp and how he became the first
Adams.
three-time world champion. There's so many things. And in the coaching tree, I mean, you look at I mean, Shawn, how many coaches are out there? You, Zeke Jones, Kel Sanderson, Tommy Ortiz. There's a lot of guys out there are coaching not high school and college level that are probably the same philosophy, right? I don't know. I don't know
Right.
what the number is.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I, I,
he
I would challenge anyone to do a pedigree tree of Bobby Douglas. You would be astonished by the people that he has influenced in the sport of wrestling. And and I also think people forget about the freestyle aspect of things as well. Bobby was a great freestyle wrestler, freestyle
oh,
coach as well. And so and and recognized as such by a lot of the foreign wrestling coaches and athletes as well. And so I reached out to Mike Moyer, and Al did a great thing for us by putting together that beautiful article and getting it out to as many people as he could. And and that was a way to really get some attention towards Bobby, or to get the fire started for Bobby.
mhm.
And then I reached out to Mike Moyer. Mike Moyer had nothing but good things to say about Bobby Douglas, and he said he would actually talk about it and bring it up to the board um, um, with the high school associations, wrestling association. So, I mean, for me, I mean, that's all we can ask is people to really to think about Bobby, think about what he contributed to the sport of of wrestling, how he contributed to the sport of wrestling, and hopefully they come to the same conclusion that myself and a lot of alumni have, that he deserves some type of national recognition for his contributions to the sport of wrestling.
I
So
mean, there's
Shawn,
uh there's the
sorry.
Dave Schultz, was it the Pursuit of Excellence Award or something like that?
Mhm.
Like maybe it's something like that where, we look at some stories across the country and it's like, okay, who kind of stands out the most? And maybe it's like the Bobby Douglas, award, and maybe we add some other words in there, but maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's definitely needed. I mean, for me too, though. I mean, I'd love to see USA Wrestling, National Wrestling Hall of Fame, to find some way to have a national award um, in Bobby's honor. I would love for the NCAA to put some type of award in Bobby's honor. I'm going to tell you guys one really sad thing that happened to Bobby while he was alive that really hurt him as a coach. He coached at Arizona State, did very well, won a lot of conference championships, coached the national championship team. Well, the shirt that I'm wearing right now, they gave it to us because there was an induction into the All Century Pac-12 championship teams, right? And I was selected, for my weight class, and a bunch of Arizona State wrestlers. Out of 10 weight classes, five of us were Arizona State wrestlers.
Mhm.
Um, but Bobby wasn't selected as the All Century coach, and this is something that really hurt him. Is like, well, someone said, well, maybe they forgot about him, or well, how do you forget about the only coach that coached the national championship? How do you forget about the coach that has out of 10 weight classes, 10 of these guys that are on the first team are from his coaching. He recruited and coached them. The sixth one is Marcus Melica. He recruited Marcus, but he didn't coach him. He left before he got a chance to coach Marcus, but he recruited him to Arizona State. So there was actually 6 guys that he actually recruited, 5 that he coached. And to use that as an excuse that they forgot about him, and if we
That's
forgot,
insane.
that's craziness,
Who
right?
ended up getting it? I mean, not to diminish what they did, but who ended up getting the award?
Other coaches and these other
Yeah.
coaches, obviously, they must have felt that they were deserving, but the accomplishments were not where Bobby's were at. I mean, he's the only coach, to win a national championship, in the conference.
And 400 wins, Shawn, 400 wins,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
over 100, and I think 110 All-Americans, you're a four-timer. I mean, four-timers, I mean, three-timers, two-timers. I mean, the Olympians, the people he impacted. Yeah, it makes zero sense.
Yeah, and
Um,
think how hurtful that was for him. He was alive when this happened, and I mean, it was hurtful for him and his family. Like, well, he wasn't even recognized. He couldn't even be on the second team. He couldn't even get recognition
oh,
for his accomplishments when he was at Arizona State and did all those things for for Arizona State. Plus, all the athletes that he coached. It just doesn't right. And so therefore, me and a bunch of the like just didn't want people to forget about who Bobby is and what he did and what he accomplished and who he coached. So the least he can have an opportunity or a chance to get some national recognition that he deserves.
so,
I think when we talk about remembering Bobby, it's like we think about I think our interactions with him and how we knew him, and I think that's his legacy is how he impacted people. I mean, I never interact with him or talk to him, but one of my core memories is watching ESPN the season where they followed the Hawkeyes, and there was like a good piece of it where it's like they're getting ready to duel Iowa State, and Bobby Douglas is like getting the guys ready. And I mean, again, that's like one of my core memories is watching that documentary. And I get fired up when he talks about it's like this, like he's talking to the guys right before the duel, and he's like, "This is our time. Like we got to do this, and let's come together. Like let's go do this. Let's go make history." And when you think about that, it's like he's in, arguably like one of the most successful teams ever is Iowa during that time period, and he's right in their back door, and he's competing with them for national titles. Like
Right.
that's pretty special.
Yeah. Very special. Very, very special. And so again, that was a reason why we reached out to you, Al, and that's the reason why, we are ready to do whatever it takes on our end. I mean, if we need to get a petition going, we're willing to do that. If they want to, have us speak to the board members at any of the USA Wrestling, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, or the High School Association, we're willing to do that. It's just the fact that there's no way you can forget about wrestling. You can't. There's no way you can forget about Bobby when it comes to wrestling. There's just no way.
so if what's his name? He's always talking on the internet when he was with Flo talking about if there was a Mount Rushmore, what wrestlers would you put on there? Bob Lee definitely has the accolades athletically, but when it comes to influence and impact in the sport, he's the most predominant person in that Mount Rushmore. I'm talking worldwide, not just in the US. He's impacted thousands of
Hmm.
people. That's where his strength was. He has the accolades. He was Olympian twice. He's world placer, one of the best coaches, 400 record. But how he impacted sport across the board from, I mean, I was talking to Joe Gonzalez and we were talking, and he had mentioned, oh, yeah, I got that book. I learned a lot of my takedowns from Bobby Douglas's takedown. I mean, I used to practice. I mean, he influenced a lot of people. And that's really, it's no question, no question. This is an opportunity. So whoever's listening out there, this is an opportunity to we got to remember this man. I mean, he's an icon to the sport, and I
Yeah.
always had appreciation for him. But what I know now is like, whoa! It's just I'm blown away. Those little details I didn't have any awareness of.
And I want you guys to understand this too. I am not myself and the other alumni are not looking for Bobby to be given something.
Hmm.
He has earned any
Hmm.
national recognition that they put in front of him moving forward.
Hmm.
He's earned it.
Oh yeah, no question, no question. One of the best ever. One of the best ever. top tier, no questions asked.
Shawn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We've been going for about an hour. I do have maybe a couple other questions that maybe you wouldn't mind humoring me a little bit. I was joking with Al. I'm like, Al, who would you want to play you in a movie? And I'm not sure if you've been asked a lot of questions about Unstoppable, but how do you feel about Don Cheadle playing you in a movie? And I guess what was that experience like for you?
Oh, I love it. I like Don Cheadle. I've met with him numerous times. He's met my family. He's a great guy, but more importantly, he's a great actor. I mean, heck,
Mhm.
I don't. I mean, yeah, Don Cheadle. Shoot, yeah, any day, all day. I mean, I'll take that all day, every day. I mean, and he did a good job as well as far as getting ready for the role because he's the kind of guy that he really gets into his craft. And if you even watch the movie closely, he even has a prosthetic cauliflower ear because
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, if you really watch the movie, he does. He's that kind of guy, and he went to some wrestling tournaments. He went to some wrestling practices. He drilled with some kids. He had never wrestled before. Didn't know anything about wrestling before taking this role on, but he dove in and really wanted to really become and feel and portray a good wrestling coach. You know
Mhm.
how wrestling coaches would talk to their athletes and how they would act and yeah. So for me, I have no complaints. I like Don Cheadle. He's a good dude. Oh, I like a lot of his movies. So yeah, I'm
I mean,
pretty
he's been
happy.
acting what 40 something years. I remember he played Rocket in Colors, right? Back in
Yeah,
80,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
88. He was
yeah.
Rocket, right?
Yeah, a lot of yeah. He was a platoon, I think. He was in a lot of
Platoon. Yeah,
movies.
those are all 80s
He was in
movies. Yeah.
Platoon.
Yeah.
I think,
There
or
were a lot of
Hamburger
people
Hill.
in
It was
Platoon.
either Platoon or Hamburger Hill. He was in one of those
Yeah,
two.
maybe Hamburger Hill.
Yeah, it might be Hamburger Hill, but
Yeah.
he was in a lot of movies back in the day, and even now he's in a lot of good movies. I mean, he's
Oh
just
yeah.
a really good actor, and so I cannot complain about the person that played me in the movie for sure.
One of the things Al was talking about too, and I'm not sure how we necessarily get the ball rolling on this, and if it's even possible to actually turn it into production. But I think a Bobby Douglas movie would be pretty cool.
Oh man, it would be interesting. I can tell you that if people understood how he got into wrestling and the obstacles he had to go through on a daily basis just to get to practice and get home, his life, yeah, it would be a very interesting movie. It'd be a very inspirational movie towards the end. But he did go through a lot of things that, man, it's like, man, like people really, yeah, yeah. So it just you hear me stumbling on my words because I'm just like, it would be a very,
It's a lot.
it'd be a
So
very
Yeah.
interesting movie.
I mean, I think I'm trying to think like how you would maybe do it, but maybe you do like maybe almost like a Netflix show, and maybe instead of doing it like a movie, you do like a 10-part limited series or something like that. But I
Um,
mean, you could start when he's younger and kind of dealing with through the racism in Ohio and having to overcome all those obstacles to, getting into what happened at Ohio State, where he pretty much gets fired for
right?
Cael Sanderson.
I would say it. I would say it. Yeah,
Iowa State, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, that was another really, a lot of people don't understand this. The year that Bobby was let go at Iowa State, he had just recruited the number one and number two recruiting class back to back. And I mean, if you just think about that for its on its own basis of just that, how do you let that person go? But then the part that is even more hurtful for Bobby, because we had a serious discussion about this, is that there was nobody else in the country willing to hire him to be a head coach.
Yeah.
That's the part
so
that's even hurtful, more hurtful than, yes, you get let go, but in football and basketball, anyone of his caliber would have got picked up like that.
mhm.
In his situation, he gets let go and is straight to retirement. No
And
one.
that time period too, there was like all these different. It was like a big coaching carousel that was happening because there was like I think a spot opening maybe at Virginia Tech. There was a spot opening up. I think was it Russ
Ohio
Hellickson maybe
State.
was leaving
Ohio State
Ohio
at the
State.
time. Yep. And so when you say that, because I mean, I didn't want to take it that far, but you're right. I mean, like, there's all these programs that are opened up, and if it was football or basketball, they would have pounced on Bobby Douglas quicker than quick.
I mean,
know.
look what happened with Penn State. They got that guy that has been very consistent out at Utah, and now he's taken over Penn State, and he's stable. They just have some issues. It's like, okay, let's get somebody that's rock solid. I mean, if I was like an athletic director and I needed maybe to get a new program going, or we needed to like establish some kind of culture or reestablish a culture, Bobby would have been perfect.
Right, right. But you got to remember that situation laid him out and put him on a path of retirement. And so again, as a former athlete, coach with them in person, um, that it was very hurtful to him and his family.
So, Shawn, I'll tell you this, talking about the movie. So, a good friend of mine lives up here in Idaho with me. I coached him in high school. He was a Graco All-American 3 times. He's also a movie screenwriter. In fact, he's won top awards with the Beverly Hills Film Festival for his writing. We were in discussion right now. He had read your article and he goes, "Wow, that would be pretty cool. Maybe I can do a screenplay on that." So I can't guarantee anything. I'm going to talk to him this weekend. If he shows interest to writing a screenplay to build that, can I give him your number and work from there?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, and it's not just me. There's a lot of alumni that have great stories about Bobby, crazy
Oh yeah.
stories about Bobby, um, and I just think like a person that's lived a very um, well, he lived a full life, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. He lived a very uh, interesting time. He lived a very interesting life going through the 60s and 70s to get to where he was as a
Mhm.
head coach at Iowa State. And to tell that story in its own right would be very powerful.
Yeah, my friend Andy Copen, he was a great he wrestled in college Humboldt, so he knows wrestling. So so when he read that, he's like, whoa. And he remembers Bobby Douglas. I mean, he had his book as a kid. He remembered, oh yeah, I
Yeah,
got that. So he knows. And he's like, man, this could be interesting. And he does his homework. He's one of the top writers in there doing that, and it's very unique skill to have. But I'll keep you apprised if he shows
I
interest.
would
I'm
love to
giving
talk
him.
with him. Love to
Yeah,
talk.
and I told him there's a whole host of people that he read all the that article I wrote had all the testimonies from all the wrestlers I had talked to, and he read all that and he's like, "Whoa, this guy, yeah, he's like he's like, well, I can go in so many different directions with this." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I can hook you up with the right people, so we'll see if he's interested. I'll let you know."
I appreciate that, Al. It's
Oh,
very,
my
very nice of
pleasure,
you.
man. My
Shawn,
pleasure.
it was an absolute blast having you on. Before we stop recording, do you have anything else?
No, I really do appreciate you guys, even bringing this conversation to your podcast, bringing Bobby Douglas and the awareness of him and just a little bit of his background story. And remember, I'm only one of his athletes. I mean, every one of us had a different relationship with Bobby. And so hopefully in the future, you guys will have some other guys on as well to talk about Bobby and their journey with him. But again, what I'm looking for Bobby and his family is not a gift, not a favor, but something that he's truly earned with what he's contributed with his what he's contributed to wrestling
Mhm.
his whole life.
And that was Shawn Charles and Remembering Bobby Douglas. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, make sure you guys like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Spotify and all the major social media platforms. We'll catch you guys next time.